We're here with Mariana, and Mariana, I will say this. I'm looking at this Dreamgirl, the Ruth Handler story. Okay, that right there is something I go, ooh, I want to know. What's going on?
Hi, great to see you. This is a TV pilot screenplay that got into the festival, and it's kind of the untold story of female genius, in my opinion. So I think if Ruth was a man, this would be like the 10th film made about her life. It's fascinating. She is a truly flawed heroine, but she just had so much brilliance in building what she built. She built Mattel and invented the Barbie doll, in case you didn't know her. No, a lot of people don't. Out of nothing, she had no money, no contacts. It's kind of a garage to millionaire success story. This was built on her own intuition, on her guts, on a couple of big gambles. She was a big gambler her whole life, and just very strategic thinking. She changed the entire toy industry and just made this immense success out of Barbie. Everybody hated the idea. Nobody wanted a doll with breasts. The male executives that surrounded her were horrified. They built lifelike machine guns that shot off a whole round of bullets, but a doll with breasts was just never going to work until Ruth got past them, advertised it directly to children, changed the toy industry for better or worse, and just overnight success. They couldn't catch up with the demand for 3 years, and then Mattel became went from being a successful kind of US company to this global sensation that it still is today, which is just immense.
Okay, and I will say this. I actually know of, but I don't know the whole story. And sometimes these kind of like go somewhere where I go, ooh, I wonder. And then sometimes you have to fill in because there's not like everything. Although some of these I have questions on them. And then some say, well, for dramatic, we have to do this. How hard was it to put that together? Because anyone that knows the story knows, because some allude to it. And then I go, what is that about? There is one that kind of came out about the Barbie, right? And Ken, we all know that. And then they kind of feature, and then they kind of go into place. I go, what are they doing? I don't understand that. Is there something that happened? Because I didn't know about, again, a toy is a toy, but I didn't think about that in my head of the time how she went around. And did she? I don't really like. What do you think people will get out of this? Since this is a screenplay, this is a script. I wish I could see the script. I'm not going to lie. But then I go maybe that because you never know if somebody because sometimes these pics or these biopics or biography picture is kind of in a way something where I go sometimes you're on to something that somebody else is going to do. So what is it about yours that makes it like the right one?
Sorry, I missed some of your question because of the live stream. I don't know if that's, but so it is really tricky to write a biopic because it's an epic story. But when you make a movie out of it, you still have to, or a TV series in this case, you still have to focus it on character. And one of my biggest challenges with Ruth was I always saw her as really confident, really going for things, but that made her very two-dimensional. And then I realized that she must have had her moments where she didn't know, she just didn't know this was going to succeed. And she actually got really depressed after getting bad reactions. And, all her colleagues kind of ousting her, her own team, her own husband, who was her partner, so they co-founded Mattel, just said, Ruth, no mother will ever buy this for her daughter. And he was her biggest rock. So she definitely had her ups and downs. She definitely had her personal struggles being a mom throughout. She had two kids, Barbie and Ken, and she kind of tried to balance home life with this massive ambition that she had. And kind of spoiler alert, she did a terrible job. Really, basically, Mattel was always kind of her priority. So I had to get into that personal kind of layer of hers, and it's still something that's ongoing as I redraft to kind of figure out her inner world as much as I can imagine it, obviously, and read about it. So, but then there's so many layers to the story of, not just her huge success, but her huge downfall. So my story actually begins, it's a courtroom drama, and it begins when she's had 30 years of massive success, and suddenly she's sued by her own shareholders, and her whole world just blows up. And, she's facing 40 years in prison. She's facing losing her whole business, everything she's ever worked for. and she has to fight for her life, basically, for her reputation. She's always been an outsider. They've always sort of been after her. They've never wanted to include her. She held talks in buildings where women weren't allowed in the building. She had to be ferreted through the kitchens. So there's all sorts of weird and wonderful layers that I think are still relevant today as well. So, women in power, it's still a struggle to be accepted and taken seriously. Um, and then, yeah, there's the whole personal story and a fascinating backstory apart from other that I don't even get to that until like episode 3 because there's just so much going on. So yeah, digging deep into Ruth was definitely a big challenge in this.
Okay, and we're kind of locking up, but I love this, and I'm not gonna lie. When I said Ruth Handler, there's a lot of handlers I know. I didn't know that one, so I go, oh, because the Barbie one alluded to, and then you go, but what's going on there? And I didn't know there was a trial. I didn't know that there was. So this is a whole thing that I go, you guys kind of hid that. What like and I'm not gonna lie. When you look at certain things about the Barbie and this and that, they kind of leave that part out. The sued part, they leave that out, and I go, oh, no wonder. But and you said the third episode. How many episodes do you think this will probably be?
I've made it a mini series, so I've got 5 kind of big themes that I want to bring out. There's the whole home life and how that goes wrong, and there's loads of things about her kids. Her son was and reuniting. There's a thing what's going on in the company. There's some amazing characters in the company. There's this kind of wild playboy that they stole. He was a rocket scientist. He designed the toys, so they get these really big brains in there. But he's just he couldn't even read or write. He's a really crazy character. Some people are trying to say he's the real inventor of Barbie, but I don't buy that. Like I said, if Ruth was a man, I think this would be like the 10th film made about her, and everybody would know who she is and would know her name. But she's kind of been sidelined, and also often kind of put down. Like, oh, she acts like a man. She's a loud mouth. She talks nasty. She certainly is flawed. I mean, that's what makes her so complex. For instance, she denied any culpability to do with the fraud to her dying day, and she never ever admitted to it. And my belief is she didn't instigate it, she didn't lead it, but there's nothing this woman didn't know about her company. Like, she knew it inside out. She knew, everyone in the factory by name. So she was inspiring. She was also brutal. If you did not make money for the company, you did not, kind of bring something, then you were gone, basically. But she didn't discriminate between whether, based on sex, race, or anything. You just had to be the best at what you did, and you had to be hungry for it. So yeah, there's just a lot in the story, which is why I made it a mini series rather than a feature film. I have been given the advice to make it a feature many times, but I would have to miss out so many things that I've kept it, as a pilot so far. So
I'm not gonna lie. I like Mini, and I don't know what else they call it. Netflix has a bunch of them. There's other ones like Tubi and some other ones I cannot think of right now. Streaming's really big right now. But I like these. Or when like a channel picks it up, like I could, I'm already visualizing some, but I don't want to limit you. I think it's awesome. Again at La Femme. We don't just have film. We do have sometimes scripts. Sometimes we have all kinds of, we have animation. We have long and short. We have all kinds of. We have music videos sometimes. So we like to feature this. I'm glad you. I didn't know this. I will say this. It's where you go. I wish I had video of that. But who do you want to play her? Because you probably have that in your head, or have you not met the person yet, or you're hoping it could get cast?
in a dream world, there's different ages of her, so I do have a kind of a dream cast. I think Reese Witherspoon would be incredible for the kind of middle-aged Ruth, definitely. And I have some weird and wonderful ones for the older Ruth and the younger Ruth. Um, Reese Witherspoon is interested in this story, I know. So Reese, if you're listening, want to read my script? That'd be great. Yeah, I don't know like what Sharon Stone's doing these days. But that was kind of my tip for an older Ruth, just to kind of, it is a redemption story. Ruth does kind of redeem her relationship with her daughter. She comes, because everything's taken away from her, really. She loses everything. She has to like kind of start anew. She also gets breast cancer. So in real life, it was before this case, but in the story, it happens just after. So a lot of things kind of layer on, and her confidence is really broken. And to kind of have a mastectomy, she had to have a double mastectomy at the time, was a real taboo. You know, it wasn't like talked about. She didn't really feel like a woman after that. So that plays into a lot of her sort of downfall as well, that she's not really herself and she's not on top of her game, and she like suffered chronic pain and, you know, kind of sweats for the rest of her life. So, you know, the whole persona of like appearing and being perfect when, for instance, she's a keynote speaker in a building where women aren't allowed in the building, you know, those things, how you appear and how you come across is really important. So she had, you know, just layer upon layer of kind of obstacles, and it's really fun to explore that in the story.
Well, I'm glad you took it. I can't wait. I would love to read it. I'm glad you have it on paper. You go, no, that's my story. That's my version. Sometimes they sell it down the river. And when you said Reese, we actually interviewed her son. Although when we interviewed her at La Femme, her son had a thing, and I looked him up later. I go, that's Reese's son. What? And I didn't get to meet him in person. So you never know when you come to La Femme. You never know who you're going to meet or who's related to who or who you have to get. Because sometimes you have to go through an agent, and I go, I get that. So it could be a pain in the butt, but again, La Femme, La Femme, La Femme. Now you're in Budapest. I hope you get everything, and I hope it goes to the next level, and I can't wait to see it. All right.
I will. Thank you so much for this time. It was
Yeah,
great. I
thank
know you
you.
woke up really early.
It is early. It's super early, but for you, it's awesome. Okay, guys, we'll be right back with more right after this. Stay tuned.